tried to forget them. You stopped making dua for them. You cut every tie. You even convinced yourself, if they were meant for me, Allah would have made this easier. But no matter how many steps you take away, your heart keeps circling back. And you're left wondering, is this love or a test? A whisper or a sign? You keep asking for clarity, keep begging Allah to remove this feeling if it's wrong. But the more you try to move on, the heavier your chest becomes. Here's the question you haven't asked. What if the reason you can't move on isn't weakness, but guidance? What if this delay you've been calling heartbreak is actually a test? In this video, we're going to uncover 5 signs that someone might genuinely be written for you, not through wishful thinking, but through the quiet way Allah unfolds clarity through patience, not speed. Some of these signs will feel uncomfortable. One of them will sound exactly like what you're doing now. And by the end, you'll know whether to keep holding on or finally release. Sign 1. You tried letting go, but peace never came. You thought it would get easier. You whispered their name one last time in your dua, then asked Allah to erase them from your heart. You deleted the chats, stopped checking if they viewed your stories. You even told yourself, if it's written for me, it'll come back. And when it didn't, you tried to accept that silence as closure, that the ache was just attachment, and obedience meant detachment. But something still felt off. Not just sadness, not longing, something deeper. Like you didn't just disconnect from them, but from a part of yourself. That's what no one talks about. That sometimes doing the right thing still leaves you hurting. That even when you let go for Allah's sake, peace doesn't come right away. Sometimes it's delayed. Or worse, it disappears altogether. And then you wonder, was it weakness, obsession, shaitan, or was it something you weren't meant to understand yet? Here's what many don't realize. Sometimes when you walk away, Allah allows the pain to linger. Not because they're right for you, but because your heart isn't ready for what's next. The heartbreak isn't punishment. It's surgery. It's the swelling before the healing, when Allah is cutting ties between you and the version of yourself that was still clinging, still fearful, still building a future around someone who wasn't even there. You're not being punished for moving on. You're being softened. And that softness, that ache, that inability to fully forget, maybe it's not because they're meant for you. Maybe it's because what Allah wants to give you requires a heart stretched wider first. Because some stories don't start with love. They start with surrender. And if you're in that place now, where every attempt to move on only brings more confusion, then you need to hear this next sign. Because what happens after you stop trying to control it? That's usually when Allah begins to show you why your dua had to take this route first. Sign 2. The signs didn't shout, and they whispered. You were waiting for something big, a dream, a verse, a lightning bolt of certainty to erase your doubt. But instead, you got patterns, moments that seemed random, yet refused to leave you. Delays that aligned too perfectly. Conversations circling back months later. A gut feeling that resurfaced every time you tried to walk away. And the irony. You called them coincidences simply because they weren't loud enough for your logic. But when Allah writes something for you, it doesn't always appear in neon lights. It often arrives in silence, and only those spiritually awake can see it. Because this isn't about obsession or ego. It's about subtle divine orchestration, the kind you only feel when your heart is still, when your eyes aren't blinded by your own timeline. You expected clarity to come fast. But in the Quran, clarity often came with delay. And be patient, for indeed Allah does not allow the reward of those who do good to be lost. Surah Hud 11:1-15. The goodness wasn't just in receiving the person. It was in becoming who you needed to be for what was written. That's why some people disappear when your iman drops and reappear when your dua matures. Maybe the reason the feeling still lingers isn't because Allah is showing you them. It's because He's showing you you. And here's what you didn't expect. The more you prayed for distance, the more your character evolved. Not for them, not to impress, but quietly, when no one was watching. That's when the real question hits. Were they the sign, or just the spark for the version of you Allah was preparing all along? Sign 3. You're not in love. You're still tied to what felt safe. You weren't smiling when you thought of them. You weren't even hopeful. You were steady, stable, calm enough not to spiral again. And somewhere along the way, you called that love. But maybe it wasn't love. Maybe it was the first time your anxiety had a face it could rest beside. The first time your loneliness had a name to whisper. The first time your heart felt like it wasn't just yours to carry. That's what safety feels like after pain. It's not intense, not passionate. It's quiet, familiar, healing, even if it wasn't right, even if it was temporary, even if Allah pulled you away. Because you weren't just attached to them, you were attached to the version of you they helped you survive as. And that kind of attachment, it's the hardest to let go. Not because you want them back, but because you want you back. The version that wasn't so afraid, that had something to look forward to, that didn't feel this lost. But here's the danger no one names. When you confuse emotional safety with divine compatibility, you start making dua for someone who's already become your comfort zone. And comfort zones don't grow you, they trap you. Spiritually stagnant, stuck in waiting. You think you're waiting for love, but really, you're waiting for that old feeling to rescue you again. But Allah doesn't return a soul to what only felt good. He returns you to what brings you near to Him. And perhaps you love a thing, and it is bad for you, and Allah knows while you know not. Surah Al-Baqarah 2:16. Because real love in Islam isn't meant to numb you. It's meant to refine you, to sharpen your character, to elevate your taqwa. The Prophet said, "A believer is not stung from the same hole twice." If all that person gave you was temporary calm, they were a mercy, but never your mission. Allah doesn't send soulmates to keep you still. He sends them when you're ready to move forward with Him at the center. So now here's the question no one wants to ask. If this wasn't love, then why can't you let go? Sign 4. Sometimes the person is right, but the timing belongs to Allah. So why can't you let go? Maybe it's not obsession. Maybe it's not weakness. Maybe it's because your soul senses something your mind can't yet comprehend. And what you've been labeling as confusion is actually divine timing. Because sometimes the person is written for you, but right now they're not ready for you, or you're not ready for them. And Allah is still writing the chapter in between. That's the hardest part to accept, isn't it? Not rejection, not heartbreak, but delay. Because delay feels like punishment. It feels like silence, like being left behind while the world moves forward without you. And your nafs pushes you to read that silence as a no. But what if it isn't a no, just a not yet? You saw the signs, you felt the connection, you even raised your hands in dua, but now they seem distant. They've gotten busier, they've grown quiet, Maybe you even saw them liking someone else's posts. And with every moment your phone stays silent, you tell yourself it's over. But here's what you haven't considered. What if the connection was real, but Allah pressed pause because you asked for more? You asked for someone who would guard your heart, honor your deen, and walk with you toward Jannah. And maybe the only way to give you that version of them was to separate you before you settled for the unfinished version. The Prophet said, "Know that if the entire nation were to unite to benefit you with something, they could not benefit you except with what Allah has already written for you. So if this person is written, distance can't erase them. And if they're not, no amount of effort will force it. Your job isn't to predict the ending. It's to trust the waiting." The Quran reminds us, and perhaps you hate a thing, and it is good for you, and perhaps you love a thing, and it is bad for you. And Allah knows, while you know not. 2:216. That love you felt might have been real. But real love doesn't always mean right now. Sometimes the test isn't letting go. It's waiting without forcing. Because love rushed before Allah makes it halal often ends in regret. But love surrendered, if it's written, returns with mercy. Some people aren't removed because they were wrong for you. They're removed so both of you can become right for each other. So maybe it wasn't bad timing at all. Maybe it was perfect mercy. The only question left is, does your heart still know the difference? Sign 5. The sign that appears only when you've truly surrendered. Sometimes the clearest signs from Allah don't arrive when you're pleading for them. They come when you finally let go. When you stop checking your phone. When you stop chasing what ifs. When you whisper, "Ya Allah, if this isn't written for me, take it out of my heart with gentleness." That's when it happens. Something shifts, not outside you, but inside. The restlessness eases. The anxiety doesn't vanish, but it softens, like a storm finally fading. And then the sign shows up. Maybe it's a dua you forgot you made unfolding in real time. Maybe it's that same person, but they return transformed, with a new heart, a new intention. Or maybe it's someone else entirely. Someone who teaches you what peace was always meant to feel like. But here's what you'll notice. There's no more forcing. The sign doesn't pull you into obsession. It doesn't stir doubt. It doesn't make you wonder if this is a test or a temptation. It feels pure, quiet, mutma'inna, a tranquil heart that no longer fights the outcome because the soul has surrendered it. As Allah says in the Quran, "And whoever fears Allah, He will make for him a way out and provide for him from where he does not expect." At-Talaq 65, verse 2-3. See the pattern? Fear Allah, let go, and then provision arrives from the unseen. Sometimes the right person isn't shown to you until you're no longer searching from a place of need, but ready to meet them with stability. Because the sign wasn't just about them being ready for you. It was about you becoming ready for a love that strengthens your tie to Allah, not weakens it. So if you're still begging for a sign, ask yourself, have you truly surrendered? Or are you secretly hoping Allah agrees with your timeline? Because here's the truth. The soul meant for you will never demand that you delay your peace. And if it's written, you won't have to chase it. You'll grow into it. So if you're holding on, not out of obsession, not out of fantasy, but because something inside you still can't release it, even after dua, even after silence, maybe that pull isn't weakness. Maybe it's a thread Allah hasn't let break yet. Not because they're the one, but because you're not done becoming the one yet. Because when Allah writes someone for you, The path to them won't look like shortcuts. It will look like surrender. You won't pursue them in DMS. You'll meet them in dua. You won't beg them to stay. You'll beg Allah for clarity. And one day, if it's written, you'll both arrive. Not through force, but through obedience. Until then, don't let your heart become addicted to chasing signs. Let it become addicted to becoming. Because the clearer you become, the clearer everything else will be. May Allah guide every heart reading this to the path that leads back to Him. Whether that means returning to someone or finally letting go for real. If your soul needed this reminder, say Ameen in the comments. And if you want more reminders like this, know that your dua, your engagement, and your intention keep this journey alive. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.